Good evening. It's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. I know a few of you just joining us. We'd love for you to change your chat feature from panelists to panelists and all attendees so we can have you share your wonderful thinking tonight. So today's webinar is presented from George Mason and a bunch of wonderful folks working together on a project, and it's entitled Engaging in Authentic Community-Based Math Modeling Task for grades K-8. It's a very long title. We're focused on leveraging students' multiple knowledge bases, and let's go ahead and introduce our wonderful panel members. So my name is Jennifer Suh. I'm a professor of math education at George Mason, and my Twitter handle is @CompleteMath. I've been working with these wonderful folks that you see on the Zoom gallery, but also featured on this slide. So let's go ahead and just go across, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Burkhead. I have had the great privilege of being one of Dr. Suh's doctoral students for the last going on 6 years now, and I am also a math coach in Manassas City.
Hi, I'm Brett Terrell. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Westlawn Elementary School in Fairfax County. I also met Dr. Suh through George Mason. I was one of her master's students, and I'm really excited to be with you all tonight.
Hi, I'm Ray Singletary. I'm the pre-K-12 math specialist for Manassas City Public Schools. And my Twitter handle is rsingletary1. And I met Dr. Suh, had the pleasure of working with her in 2 different districts now, and just working on some leadership projects and getting this work moved forward. So I'm excited to be here.
I am Susan Call. I'm at Westlawn Elementary with Brett. I'm the math coach there in Fairfax County, Virginia. I'm excited to be here. I've worked with Dr. Suh for a lot of years. We started with lesson study and working with some grants through Complete Math and working on some projects. So it's exciting to be here and to be talking about math modeling.
And I'm Holly Tate. I'm just finishing my first year in the PhD program, and I'm a GRA for Dr. Suh. And I'm also a math coach in Alexandria City Public Schools.
And as we're sharing a little bit about our session, Sarah, can you go ahead and put the poll on the right side, or could you put it in the chat box, please? We'd love to get to know you, and I know it's a little hard to really be able to chat, but we would love for you to take a quick poll, and I'll be sharing that. We want to know who you are and what position you have currently, and how familiar you are with math modeling. Just a little bit about our session. I know you read the blurb that we shared, but the most important thing that we want to share tonight is really how you might engage in math modeling with your students. We think it really encourages students to be doers of mathematics and promote math agency. We also want to identify some tools that we've been using during our online teaching as we're really trying to promote student voices as we're working on collaboration and problem solving. And finally, we'll share some strategies for starting with math modeling in your school or in your district. So that's kind of our agenda for tonight. And if you could go ahead and follow the link that Sarah just shared with the Menti. You should all be able to see menti.com. Sarah, did you share it in the chat box? Okay,
I did.
Awesome.
I will pull the results over when we have a when we think we've got everyone participating.
Okay, and I think you can kind of see it happening in time. So
oh, there you go. You've got it.
Tonight we have a lot of coaches and specialists. We have some elementary teachers, middle school teacher. We did say it was K-8, so we don't have any high school teachers right now. We have a few administrators and some others. So hopefully we'll be able to engage you and kind of make it all relevant for the position that you have and what you teach. The other slide just asks you to think about math modeling and how familiar you might be with math modeling. So let me see if I advance this slide. It was working just a while ago. Let's see. Let's see if I could. All right. Well, I'm going to show you the how familiar you are in a minute. Let's go ahead and just continue on so that we don't lose any time. Our agenda today, we're really going to focus on what math modeling is, especially community math modeling, as we entitled our session, and why we might want to use math modeling in our classroom. Then we're going to just have a little bit of fun. We're going to launch into a short mini math modeling, and Susan and Brett will kind of navigate through that with us, and then we'll share out some of the lessons learned from our lesson study. And Sarah and Ray will share how to get started in your school and at your district. We will leave some time for Q&A, but please feel free to add in the Q&A section and even in the chat box, as we will monitor as we go. All right. Just real quickly, I think it's really exciting that we could share this partnership. We've been able to do lesson study around Northern Virginia and a little bit beyond. Through a lot of support from VDOE's Math and Science Partnership grants, but also a recent NSF grant that we had. But besides just the grants, we've had opportunities to network with different schools, different teachers, different math specialists, folks who might just be interested in math modeling or lesson study. We're always available to just kind of connect and share some of our interest and excitement about math modeling. We also have a wonderful, and I kind of put in a plug for our GMU Math Specialist program. It was one of the first, and that's not a boast, but we were one of the first in the nation, and I would say it's one of the best in the country. So hopefully you're familiar with our program. Tonight, just to kind of get a sense of what is math modeling, we want Holly to share just a brief description of what we're talking about tonight.
Thank you. And so math modeling is really just the problem-solving process that we use every day when we make decisions, and it's the cyclical process. So in the classroom, we pose a problem that is really embedded in the context of the students, and you'll see that in later examples in the lesson study portion of this work. Also, students wonder and they pose their own questions about the problem. And as they're wondering, they begin to make assumptions and look to define the variable, and they work collaboratively to build a mathematical model that will support their solution. And this allows for them to really analyze and interpret not only their own mathematical thinking, but each other's ideas. And so they're engaging in reasoning and questioning and mathematical argumentation. And in the end of the process, when they're revising and refining and reflecting, they begin to make larger generalizations about these mathematical concepts, and they reflect on the implications to the original problem that was posed.
That was awesome, Holly. Thank you. And so we think about, what does community-based math modeling look like, and why might we engage in it? We found that when teachers and students are authoring and designing problems within their own context, like a lot of our math modeling tasks are appearing at the top, they're usually either school events or community functions or community problems. One was thinking about a reading challenge at the school and how they were going to read 100,000 minutes. One was a coin harvest celebration right around Thanksgiving. There was a coin drive, and so that was kind of the centerpiece of the modeling task. A first grade class did a marker crisis. It was a school supply shortage crisis, and it was real to them. That problem was so very real, but it actually taught them how to conserve at the end, which was such a great lesson. And tonight you'll hear a little bit about the mooncakes for celebration. But these ideas of selecting math modeling tasks within the school or community really allows kids to see that math is happening all around them. And it brings this authenticity that I think really is so engaging. And one of the, I think, important connections that we make with research on why math modeling is that this idea of community-based math modeling, or just math modeling in general, is a real natural way to promote equitable instruction. Bartea et al. Wrote this wonderful article for NCTM on how equitable instruction is really tapping into students' funds of knowledge and thinking about the local context and the community and school context. You can really tap into what students' funds of knowledge is. It's also about positioning students as being capable mathematicians. We have, through the modeling task, having students pose problems as well as solve problems. And of course, the most exciting things for all teachers is really when we attend to students' mathematical thinking. They do have so many powerful ideas. So we like to kind of like think about it as math power, building math power, and just abbreviate to empower, and it really is empowering students. So here's Westlawn, and Susan's going to talk a little bit about Westlawn and just some of the context around the school.
Okay, I love this slide right here. It's showing a lot of Westlawn and what they have done with math modeling. And just to highlight what's on this slide, the coin harvest, they decided to collect coins to buy food for families in need at Thanksgiving time. So that was a really great thing for them to do. Jen also put in a copy of the article that they wrote on it, and it was published, which was very exciting for our teachers at our school. And so that was a really great thing for Westlawn. But let me tell you a little bit more about Westlawn. We're in Fairfax County, Virginia. We are a Title I school. We have about 72% of our students on free and reduced lunch. But we also have 60% of our students that are English language learners. So that is a huge part of our curriculum. You'll notice in the lesson study today some language support that we give our students to help them in building that language. Westlawn is a place that really strives to meet the needs of our diverse community and to support them and to promote high academics. So that's just a little bit about Westlawn. I'm sorry. Thank you, Jen. And so you can see right here this is kind of the start of where we started with the mooncakes. And so what was happening about this time last year in January, the Chinese New Year was approaching, and the teachers saw it as a great opportunity to do a math modeling with our students. They started by sharing some read alouds with their students to get them excited about the Chinese New Year, to also learn about it. Some of our students didn't know about it, and so they needed to learn about it, and some had their own personal connections that they could share with everybody. So as they were learning about this and sharing their family traditions, and you can go ahead and go to the next slide, this question was asked.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
My mouse is very, very sensitive.
So the question was asked, thinking about celebrations and food, special foods at celebrations. So how do you celebrate holidays with special foods? And a lot of the students had connections that they could share. And then from there, tapping into our students' lives, we wanted to go into this math modeling task. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brett.
Thanks, Susan. As you notice here, we're trying to inundate the students with lots of different media. We showed videos, we did scholastic news articles, we did read alouds. We were learning about ancient China as part of the 3rd grade curriculum at the same time. So we were just really trying to tie in a lot of different things together. And so as you see here, as with many of our math happenings, we start with a notice and a wonder. And this, again, helps students really connect and get excited for the task to come. And it's a great place to have tie in with a lot of other curriculum pieces and also specialists. So a notice and wonder, these are some great tools that we use virtually. So Padlet, as you can see there's a link to a Padlet. If you're not familiar, please check it out. It's a way for students to share their voices, even if we can't do it all in person. Wondering Oh, sorry, am I going too slow? Wondering is also a great tool to use because it's important to pose the problem, and that's how we start to define our math thinking. So after we connect to the idea and we see ourselves in the project we are doing, we start to define how we know, what we know and what we need to find out. So what we're going to do is we are going to engage in some math tonight. We're going to make some mooncakes for our celebration. So can you please use the chat, or we can, please use the chat. And what do you know about the problem? What do we still need to find out? Oh, we still need to find out how many people we are serving. Mm-hmm.
Wow, they're coming in quickly. Some of us will be scribing on the Google slides, so you'll see it, but we're getting some really great responses. What are the ingredients? What's the recipe?
Measurements.
How many do we need, right? How many people are we making the mooncakes for? The cost to make it, the carbs per serving, that's really good. What tools do we need? And I think you guys can't see all the things that we're typing in right now because I have it on sharing mode, right? Are you typing, Sarah? Okay, so maybe I need to exit out of it so that you guys can see. Sorry. Yes, I think this might allow you guys to see. Is it too small, or can you read it? Are you guys good? All right, so we have some of these. What do you know? Another thing that someone said is that some people do have food allergies. That's important to know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys saw the picture. I can kind of just show you guys again. But do you see some brown stuff there? If you know what that is, you can maybe put it in the chat box. But kids were really curious because you know, they knew that we said it was bean, and they didn't realize there were some sweet bean flavors too. They were used to just other kinds of beans, so it was really interesting, some of the things that they noticed.
Mm-hmm. And they were so into it, just incredibly engaged, and it was just lovely to see. And then, as some of you have shared, we might need a recipe to follow so that we can create our mooncakes. So we're going to pause for a second, and with our teacher hats on, let's think about what kind of standards we can connect to this task. What language building and bridging opportunities can we use? Could it be a building block for future knowledge? How could you as a teacher use this in your classroom? So we're just going to pause and just like, of all this rich things that we have on the screen here, just think, how can we do it? Oh, Joan, that's great. Fractions, temperature, time, equivalent fractions, ratios. Mm-hmm. Conversions. So as math learners, so we just were teacher hat, let's do our math learner hat. Let's use this slide with a recipe and other important information, and let's start to make some assumptions. So assumptions, again, in our cycle, a natural place to flow after identifying the variables within, in our cycle, a natural place to flow after identifying the variables needed to work within the problem, we need to start defining the problem itself. So much of like a numberless problem does, we dive into the math without really even realizing that we're in a math problem. And we can think about the quantities important to this problem, and then we can think about our end goal. What do we do with these quantities? We need to make some decisions around the math. So we are going to do that together. Here. And you have the Google presentation there. So you can either drop in the chat or you can type on the slide your assumptions. What can we assume about this, this problem?
And I think Sarah has shared the link to the Google Slides in the chat box. So feel free to take one of the text boxes. So what are some of the assumptions that you might need to make before you can start mathematizing?
You can also work on slide 22, 23, or 24. They're all identical. You can grab a box anywhere.
So just highlighting a couple assumptions that we see. I would want to make enough mooncake so folks who like it can get seconds. Have enough ingredients to accommodate everyone in our class who wants a mooncake. Thinking about the class size. We're assuming everyone wants one. Usually when there's food in the classroom, everyone wants one. So as we kind of finish up our assumptions.
I see that some of you guys are already thinking about how many you might want to make. Some people are already thinking about what they're going to do to the recipe. So as you're continuing to write, I'm going to advance us to the next slide and give you guys some individual think time, because we are all math teachers and we love playing with some mathematics. So we're going to give you some individual think time. Maybe you have some paper next to you, or you might even want to just click on this link. Brett was able to make a really nice little workspace for us with some virtual manipulatives. This is a really nice way to invite students to kind of use their thinking, but also use some online tools to represent their thinking so that they can share their understanding. So take a moment. We'll give you guys about 3 to 5 minutes just to kind of play around with the tools. It's not too long, but it'll still give you a chance to play around a little bit so that you can do the math. So let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and mute myself so that you guys can play around with some of that math. And I think you guys can probably see by moving up and down the recipe, because that might help you at least have the information that everyone had in our mooncake modeling task.
So as some of you are finishing up, I would like to point out that there are so many ways that you could extend this task. I could, for instance, share that my cup measuring tool is missing. How could I still make the recipe with the tools I have? I could also create a more challenging numbers in the assumption portion. Like I could have each student, I would like to have at least 2, but no more than 5 mooncakes. And these tasks are also really great for differentiation. We, in preparation for our task, we prepared an alternate recipe using only teaspoons versus kind of a mixed measurement. But ultimately, everyone did use this recipe.
Also, someone already has started this, but if you feel comfortable sharing your strategy, you could share on slides 26, 27, or 28 for your solution.
And if you also would add your assumption of how many people you're feeding, because that may be different for individuals.
So as you guys are looking at some of the descriptions of doing the math, I think you'll see that some of the vocabulary that was really important for our students to learn and understand was this idea of batches, right? And serving size. And so we're going to continue on just because we want to give you a chance to think about how this lesson might play out in a real classroom. But if you haven't added any of your mathematizing, we would love to kind of have you also share what math is so useful in this problem and what math might your students at whatever grade level you teach use to solve this problem. So we had some middle school teachers, we had some elementary teachers, we didn't have any high school teachers when we started, but we just wonder what kind of math might emerge when you are presenting this in your classroom. So we're going to move on, and we appreciate all of your thinking, and we hope that we're going to check it out later. But a lot of you guys were thinking about how important it was to think about the people that you wanted to serve and how that would impact this recipe. So we're going to move on to slide 29, and we're going to be thinking about the problem that was posed in this classroom. And you see on slide 29, the question was, how do we adapt a recipe to make enough mooncakes for the class? And I'm going to move us into slide 30. If you could just take a moment, in which grades might you be able to use this task? I know you guys are kind of a vertical team of teachers. I see Kate, who says 6th grade. Betsy says 5th grade. Let's hear a few more grades that you might be able to use this modeling task. Okay, so we have some middle grades. Anne Marie says 6th and 7th. Gosh, the lowest so far is 4th grade. All right. Any more? 5, 6, 4, 6. 7th grade with ratio tables and equivalents. Excellent. All right, well, we're going to move on to slide 31, where we're going to tell you what grade we infused this.
Okay, you'll notice in this picture, and you can go ahead and go into present mode from here Dr. Sa. If you'll notice in this picture, one of our third grade teachers. Yep, we did this task with our third graders at West Lawn. You'll notice that this teacher is building the anchor chart with her students as we begin to working on the task. She's using some sentence frames to help support our students, but this anchor chart is going to help them in making their decisions. And what we're going to do on these next few slides is to share with you some of their solutions that they came up with. So if we look on the next slide, we can see how they use math to help them make decisions. Here's an example of a student who's trying to figure out how many batches we need to make. As Dr. Sun mentioned about batches, that was a big concept for our students. What's a batch? What do you mean by a batch? Or we're going to have to make it again and again, and do we start? And so we had to kind of talk about that recipe idea of it only had enough for 6, but yet we were trying to make enough for this particular one. And if you can go ahead and hit the you'll see the little captions of the students and what they said. Here, this student was trying to make enough for 23, and so she realized, and she set out the marker or the counters to represent the number of people that could have a moon pie in each batch. And the last one has 1 yellow because that was an extra moon cake. So that was her way of representing that. And here we have in a 3rd grade classroom, they are doing math like this. So on this one, you'll notice that this student, she was trying to make sure she had enough for 26. And so she was using Unifix cubes to kind of figure out, okay, if I put 6 of these cubes together, that represents my 6 moon pies. And then if I have 4, I won't have enough. So I need to make enough. I have to have 5 batches. So, and then as we go on to the next, we can see a paper copy of a student. And you'll notice in this one, it's kind of hard to see in the light. And as you hit the next, as you hit this, go ahead and hit enter, it'll come up as they were trying to figure out how much milk. And the milk was in milliliters. And so it had that. And so they were actually adding 175 4 times. And they figured out that they needed to do that on their own. And then at the bottom on how much sugar do we need for 4 batches, and you can go ahead and hit enter again, and it'll show up that, and it's kind of pointing, and if you hit it again, it'll have like a little box of what they're doing there. So what they did is they wrote 1 1/2 4 times. And then the student realized, well, I've got 4 holes, and then if I put all my halves together, I've got 2 more holes. So I'm going to need 6. Here we have a 3rd grade student adding mixed numbers before we even got to our adding fractions unit, which was real exciting. Here's a student that did something very similar. She said, I've got 1 cup is for 6 people, and another would be for 12, and another would be for 18, and another would be for 24. So here she's using that multiplication idea and doing that repeated addition and thinking about that she's going to need 4 cups of cake flour. And then she also figured out that for the sweet flour, I have 1/4 is for 6 people. So 2/4 would be for 12 people. Some great mathematical thinking from our 3rd graders. Okay, and the next slide. Okay, and then I wanted to kind of share this slide because there was a lot of discussion and talking within our classroom. That was very important, that mathematical discourse that we had within the lesson, where the students could engage with each other. They could look and see what their classmates were doing, and then they could build on each other's ideas. And that was really important to our teachers, as well as sharing their representations that the students created. Okay.
And I'd like to just jump in there, Susan, because a lot of times when I go to PDs and things, I think, can it be for my kids? Can it be for, I've got high ESOL population and things like that. And just to put this into context, this is a classroom of 20 students that year. And then all but 2 of them were speakers of other languages. So I only had 2 native English speakers, most of them from the ESOL level, like a pre-A to up to an ESOL like a 6, like a bridging. So the total spectrum of English acquisition, and they all did it. They all participated.
They all had access into the task and had ownership of the task.
So, and anyone can do it. So here, this portion, we're talking about analyzing and interpreting the solution. So we had that class discussion, and I love this part. Our goal is to help the class arrive at a solution that could be shared in many situations. So that model. It was challenging task for a lot of language barriers, but with a lot of that prep work, they were easily able to access the conversation. The other challenge with this was the class, this particular class was still very much in the concrete stage of understanding. And the very nature of creating a model is abstract. So to make that jump could be hard, but through thoughtful student pairings, gallery walks, strategic progressed student sharings, the class was able to create a model involving, you can kind of see there, but it involved our student class size of 20 times the number of classes divided by 6, the serving size. And we were able to create a model to work that would work for many situations. The idea that words could stand in for a quantitative value was something shocking to most of the students, which was kind of cool to see the little light bulbs go off in their heads. And the making of groups helped them really to scale up or scale down the recipe. So that was neat how they didn't quite get it at first when we asked, how do we tell other people how we can make enough? They were like, oh, well, let's just post the recipe in the hallway, then they'll know. And so just trying to get them to try to broaden their horizons. I'm going to be honest with you, the first time I did it, I was it's like, are we going to get there? Maybe we are, maybe we're not, but they definitely pulled it out in the end. So great job with them. So did we reach our goal? Yes. Students were able to engage in a math task that was of interest to them. It validated their cultural beliefs, and it was just fun. And I looped up with my class this year, and I will gladly share that they still reference this task. They ask for it by name. Anytime I do math modeling tasks, they're like, oh, the podcast one, or oh, the mooncakes one. And they are begging me for math tasks like this. So if you want your kids to beg for more math, do math modeling. And all joking aside though, what they do, they're so invested in the learning, it cements it into their head. So now we're in our multiplication division unit right now, and they're still referencing the grouping that they did. Like, oh, I remember when we made mooncakes and we had to do groups of 6, and then we had to like do it a bunch of times to do all the groups of people. So they're taking that real world experience and then synthesizing it with what we're learning now. So we're getting into bigger numbers now. So it's really cool to see it happen.
Awesome.
And Brett,
go ahead.
I was just going to add on, just really showing that they can do higher mathematics than even what their grade level standards say that they can do.
Absolutely. Oh, always. Every time you do it, you like we had third graders doing remainders like 2 years ago. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's the nature of real world problems. They're messy and they're complex just by nature of being a real world problem. And sometimes that's where the kids actually see the need for mathematics. And I think that's what we want them to develop in their productive disposition towards math. But this idea of revising, I think is such an important idea. And in math education, I think we're really kind of embracing this idea of revising our thinking and rough draft, talk. And, those are ideas that I think are so real, because when we really use math in our real world, we actually do revise a lot. Oops, I didn't make enough. Next time I'm going to have to make the recipe bigger. Or you think you're going to make it to the 7 o'clock webinar and you thought dinner was going to be all ready and you were estimating all this time, and whoops, you're behind because some of your assumptions could be wrong. So this idea of revising and refining is such a great lesson. And I think even this day and age where we're hearing a lot about math modeling and the numbers that we hear about projections, about, in our, I guess in this current pandemic, we're hearing a lot about math modeling and how that's helping us make decisions. In the early grades, it's really these kinds of community-based test that's helping them understand that math is really useful. It's helping us make decisions. In this case, it was mooncakes and making sure that everybody had enough. This little boy's picture is my favorite because it doesn't the mooncake look like a heart shape, like how much he's glowing the heart. In any case, all right. So we actually did a lot of professional development around this. This lesson study allowed us to kind of dig deeper into the math, but we also looked at this real world problem and thought about all these different pathways we could take. We decided to take that one pathway where we were looking at adapting a recipe, but many of you guys were talking about earlier about ingredients, the cost, and all of those different mathematical pathways. In doing this kind of concept map, we were able to look at some of that vertical learning trajectory. Like what are some of the skills that students already have, like skip counting and choral counting, because we saw kids skip counting by fractions, but what are some emergent grade level standards in third grade? Repeated addition and connections to multiplication, this idea of fractions, adding 3-digit, multi-digit numbers, right? But also looking at the horizon of thinking about proportional reasoning, I saw some of our middle grade teachers talking about ratio tables and scaling up and down. So this is a really nice kind of modeling task that was really connected to their culture and their community, but also it provided this kind of anchor for all the math that they were learning. All right, we're going to switch gears, I think. And so you're all excited. We've really captivated you with our presentation and you want to start tomorrow. So here is Manassas City Public School, one of our favorite districts that we work with, and how they're kind of thinking about innovating with math modeling. So this is Ray and Sarah.
So yeah, do you want to get started tomorrow, right? Do you want to just get started in this work? It's so exciting. And what I'm going to do, and Sarah and I are going to do, is just give you some context in terms of the district perspective of what our school district is, some demographics, how we got started, and some possible next steps. So we have, in Manassas City, we have 7,700 students. We have 9 schools. We have 49% of our students are English language learners, 68% Hispanic. And what we notice is that students weren't engaging in math. And it was evident by going into the classroom, they were just disconnecting and not doing a lot of the work. And we noticed that in some of our numbers in terms of dropout rate. Our dropout rate is 3 times the state percentage, and our advanced diplomas, a lot of the students aren't getting there. We have 36% of our students compared to the state's 51% of our students are getting to advanced diplomas, and they were getting stuck in this loop of algebra and not getting out of it. And so not getting to higher levels of math. And so the idea here was to create these experiences for students that they could engage with. And I think Brett said it, I think Dr. Suh said it, which these anchor experiences that connect to the world that they live in now, not the world that they are projected for in the future, but what they're actually experiencing now and how they can use math to leverage and navigate those experiences. And so there was an opportunity that came up with the state called the Division of Innovation Grant. We ended up applying for it, did not get the grant, but we still moved forward with the work even in the face of a pandemic. And we tried to bring up this idea of creating these model classrooms. Like, what do we want our students to experience in math? And our goal was to use math modeling as a tool to help leverage those anchor experiences so that they can take, we all know that students lose information from day to day, from year to year, from month to month. How can we have them translate that experience that they had to the next class, to the next topic, and use it to get them excited about learning and own the learning experience? And so the biggest key for us was to get a partner to help us in this work and identify some teachers, like early adopters like you all, to start the process. And so we got with George Mason to help us to get the learning experiences for our teachers. And what engaged them the most, I'll have to say this, is that the teachers were interested in how can I actually keep my kids engaged online? Because at this point, we were already in the point where we knew we were going to be virtual. How can I do that online? And that was one of the sticking points. And what we see from them is very different than the experience that we see for teachers that haven't been in that experience. And so if you would go to the next slide, Sarah's going to explain a little bit about the class itself.
So what we did is designed a summer content course that met over the summer 4 times and gave teachers the opportunity to explore what mathematical modeling was, gave them the opportunity. We used the text of the game report, which we'll share a link to later in the presentation. We used a lot of resources from the complete website that we already shared, as well as the M2C3 website, which again is in the resources of this presentation, to build some shared experiences around modeling. And those did continue into 2 fall sessions. So the 6 tasks that we did together are linked on the bottom corner of that slide. And this went on into the fall. And as we were continuing our experiences together with modeling, the teachers worked together to design tasks that they could implement with their students. Some teachers worked in grade level teams. Some teachers worked in vertical teams, adapting a single task to multiple grade levels. But they collectively thought about the task, designed it, did it, revised it, until they felt ready to present the task virtually. And that was part of our process, was how do we change this task to make it work in our current virtual world? And then finally, they implemented the lesson, made videos of their, recorded their lesson and excerpted some videos, and gave us the opportunity as a group to reflect on the teaching and how the modeling went for students and what they got out of it, and how we had learned as a group as well as individually through using these tasks. And the teachers, I mean, overwhelmingly positive response, both from our teachers and students. And so now our question is, how we have this cohort of teachers who have had this experience and this learning and think this is a cool idea. So how do we keep going? You know, how do we make this a focus across our district? And so just to give you an idea, right, this was not a huge movement. This was, we went and individually tried to recruit people we thought might fill that role of leader, of change agent, of early adopter. We ended up with about 13 teachers, I believe, and most of our coaches involved in the Summer Institute in the fall. And we actually have a small group that's continuing with us now, working on how we continue the work, presenting our work to other teachers, to our school board and such. And so, you know, we started very small, but we're really seeing the impact grow.
Yes, and so to continue to work, the biggest thing for me and for us is really aligning what we believe. And so one of the tasks that we did at the beginning was ask how do you define math modeling? And then at the end, we came back to it to see what our teachers would say. And these are their texts from their slide during our session. But what we noticed is that talked about a lot of the things that people are asking questions about, you know, authentic, real world, context. What are these things that, how do we define them? What type of experiences do we want for our students so that they are taking ownership of the learning and not just sitting and waiting or just stopping and quitting when they get to an experience? And so it's really about that inviting piece. And that's the part that we wanted to focus on. I noticed some people put in SD Mystery and 3X tasks. It wasn't just about doing a math modeling. It was about doing those other things to help build that culture of let's have these notice and wonder. So it's not just an answer. We can just be curious for a little bit and pull out what you see, what you believe, and we're going to value that. And then when we get to the math modeling experience, then you're also doing that too. So those are the types of habits we wanted our teachers to get into. And because they did that early, it helped them when they got to the math modeling experience. So our next steps, you know, we want to definitely come up with some shared expectations around what a model math classroom is for Manassas City Public Schools. And we want this to become the norm. So those teachers that Sarah showed earlier are going to be our leaders in that work and defining what that is. Coming up with the resources, some people asked about that. There are some definitely tools that we want to align to our curriculum documents. And then we got to recruit more. So we want to build capacity moving forward so that this is not just one small group. You get, to me, it's about bringing people together and talking through it together like you did tonight. It's that opportunity to share the work, share the learning, and then you grow and you feel more confident in doing it in your classroom. If you're doing this in isolation, that's going to be hard. So find some people around you that also want to do the work, and that'll help you to get started.
Awesome. And I see in the chat, you know, math modeling does have a lot of great connections to the scientific investigation process. Like, I think, you know, this idea of like, I mean, baking in science, I think that's the connection to the mooncakes. But I think that the whole math modeling cycle of making assumptions, like building a hypothesis, right? And then you test it. And this idea of math modeling is really testing your model. And there's a great saying, like, all models are wrong. Some are more wrong than others, or all models are wrong and some are useful, right? We find that, you know, we mathematize and sometimes our assumptions could be completely off. But I think it's really important for us to kind of be thinking about ways of, you know, really developing our students' critical thinking skills. And this was really a natural way for us to do this. And in this short 1 hour, we were hoping that you could kind of indulge in a little bit of math modeling with the mooncakes, but also hear and be inspired by our colleagues from Manassas City, and that this does not happen only in certain classrooms, that it can happen in all classrooms. And I think that it's really important for teachers to kind of have that disposition that this is right for all students, that all students can be exposed to this kind of rigorous math, and that students will surprise you and rise to the occasion. And we want to share with you some wonderful resources, but while we're doing that, if you want to put in some questions, we did try to really honor the time and give you a few minutes to ask some questions, and we definitely want to entertain some of those ideas. The final link that you have in your PowerPoint slides provides you with a lot of great resources. And of course, sometimes you're inundated with resources. So if you ever want to reach out to us about how we're using some of these resources, please let us know. I did put the mooncake, we had these infographics that we created. This is just our rendition of what our lesson looked like. So if you click on that, you'll see kind of our summary of it. But the scaling up recipe is a modeling task. There's lots of modeling competition for middle school and high school. And I would encourage districts to really kind of look into the Moody Challenge is actually a high school competition, and kids who are introduced to this math modeling contest, whether they compete or not, love this challenge. It's a real world. Last year was, I think, a traffic problem. There's a transportation problem. It's real world. Like, I mean, even distributing COVID vaccine is a real world problem, and it has a lot of modeling. But you know, in the elementary grades, you might enjoy some of the immersion tasks, or M2C3 is another group of colleagues that we work with from Arizona. We have this wonderful continuation grant that we would love to you know, share more resources, but their project was also very connected to cultural and community context. So we shared that, as well as some great resources. The game report and this one guide is really helpful, and some publications. So any questions do we see? I see some of you guys just wanted the slide link, and we're happy to share, but we want to also give a moment to recognize this wonderful work that we do at GMU, and Abby's here to share a little bit, because this might just kind of whet your appetite to learn more and do some more professional learning with us. So take it away, Abby.
Hey everyone. Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So my name is Abby Jones. I am one of the program admissions advisors for our Math Ed Leadership program. The program is about a 2-year program. It's, again, we have some amazing faculty who have been working with us for quite a while, and they're just so good at what they do. Some of the things that they really emphasize are the idea of transferable skills, just like you've seen today in our webinar. The program can be completed in a 100% synchronous, online synchronous, or in a hybrid or blended format. It's really a 2-year program. A lot of people take 1 to 2 courses a semester, usually complete the program in a little over 2 years. The courses are Some of them are geared more towards educational leadership, while other ones are geared more towards mathematics education overall. And it does lead to a math specialist endorsement in K-8 in the state of Virginia. So we have included a QR code there. The website is right there, and I believe it was just posted in the chat. So if you have any questions, I'm going to put my email address in the chat just so that you have it. I'm more than happy to send you any additional information that you want. If you just have questions, if you just want to say hi, anything like that, we're more than welcome to help you. And yeah, thank you so much. Again, thank you for your time and thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abby. And you have our contact information with the very first page, second page, and we really want to hear from a lot of you. If you have any questions or you need a real, you want a task that you want to try out right away, please send us an email, and I think we'd be more than happy to share with you some of the exciting tasks that we've used. I want to thank the panel members. I know Ray and Sarah have had a marathon today of webinars. So I want to thank them and the rest of our colleagues from West Lawn, Susan and Brett. I admire the work you do. And Holly's been really immersing in math modeling. So I want to thank her as well. Everyone, take good care of yourself. I'm so glad this was inspiring. We wish you had your mics on, and we would love to connect with you later. Please do send us an email if you have any other questions or you want to get started right away. In fact, Lunar New Year is just less than a month away, so you can actually do the mooncakes. All right, thanks everyone. We'll let you guys go back to your families. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Please stay in touch and stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Thank you. And thank you so much, Jenna, for being back there, supporting us and getting this, so seamlessly done.